The emergency signal pulsed through the void of space, its desperate message repeating in over 50 galactic standard frequencies. In the grand meeting chamber of the Galactic Council, hundreds of delegates from across the known universe sat in uncomfortable silence. Their various forms, from crystalline structures to gaseous clouds contained in environmental suits, all showed signs of what their species considered distress. High Counselor Reed, a tall, willowy being with silver skin that rippled like water, stood at the central podium. His movements were careful and delicate, typical of a species that evolved on a low-gravity world with perfect weather conditions. The holographic displays around him showed the destruction of yet another solar system by the silicon-based entity they had been tracking for the past 3 standard cycles. "The Forge cluster has fallen," Reed announced, his melodious voice carrying a weight that made several delegates shiver. "That marks the 12th system lost to this consciousness." He didn't need to remind them that the Forge cluster had been home to their most advanced shipyards. From the middle tier of the chamber, General Axe of the United Defense Fleet rose. His crystalline form caught the light, sending rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. "High Counselor, we have lost 60% of our combat-capable ships. Our weapons seem ineffective against this entity. It adapts too quickly, learns too fast, and operates in conditions that would kill most of our species." The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. A representative from the Science Council, Dr. Loom, activated her hover platform to rise above the crowd. Her gaseous form swirled with patterns that indicated deep thought. "The entity thrives in environments we consider lethal: extreme pressure, intense radiation, crushing gravity. Our forces cannot pursue it into its preferred habitats. We need something different." The room fell silent as Dr. Loom's platform displayed a new set of data. "There might be a solution, though many of you will find it disturbing." She paused, her gaseous form condensing slightly, a sign of nervousness in her species. "We need to consider recruiting from the quarantined worlds." Shock rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew about the quarantined worlds. Planets deemed too dangerous for civilized life, whose gravity alone could crush most council species. Worlds racked by extreme weather, deadly radiation, and aggressive biodiversity. Deathworlds. Specifically, Dr. Loom continued, her form rippling with determination. "We need to contact Earth." The mere mention of that name caused several delegates to activate their personal shield systems. Earth was legendary among the council races, but not for good reasons. It was classified as a Category 12 death world, a planet so hostile that its very existence seemed to defy the laws of habitability. High Counselor Reed raised his hand for silence. "Earth. The gravity alone would kill most of our species, and the inhabitants," he shuddered delicately. "They evolved in those conditions. They are," he struggled to find a diplomatic term, "monsters," someone whispered from the crowd. "Giants who can survive radiation that would dissolve our forms. Beings who evolved on a world of such high pressure and gravity that their bones are practically unbreakable by our standards." Dr. Loom's display shifted to show comparative biological data. "Exactly. The humans can endure conditions similar to those where the silicon entity thrives. They are adaptable, resilient, and—" She paused again. "Their historical records show they possess exactly the kind of aggressive problem-solving capabilities we need." General Axe's crystalline form vibrated with concern. "You want to recruit beings who consider living in crushing gravity and deadly radiation normal. Creatures who evolved as pursuit predators, who can survive the loss of entire limbs and continue fighting." "Yes," Dr. Loom replied firmly. "Because those are exactly the qualities we need to fight an enemy that destroys everything we throw at it. We need beings who look at impossible situations and see challenges to overcome. We need warriors who can fight in conditions that would kill us instantly." High Counselor Reed looked out at the assembled delegates, seeing the fear and desperation in their various forms of expression. The holographic displays continued to show the spread of the silicon entity's destruction, a cancer eating away at their civilized worlds. "Send the signal," he finally declared. Contact Earth. But remember, his silver skin rippled with nervous patterns. We're not just calling for help. We're about to unleash something that the galaxy has never seen before. May the cosmic forces have mercy on us all. The signal was sent, piercing through space toward a small blue planet that most species considered a hell world. A world whose inhabitants were about to show the galaxy why being from a death world had its advantages. Captain James Walker stood at the window of Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching the morning sun rise over the Rocky Mountains. His coffee was still hot in his hand when every electronic device in the building started screaming at once. The sound made his teeth rattle, and coffee splashed onto his crisp blue uniform. Captain to the command center immediately, the AI system announced, its usually calm voice carrying an edge he'd never heard before. This is not a drill. Repeat. This is not a drill. Walker ran through the halls, passing equally confused officers. In his 15 years of service, he'd never seen the entire EDF headquarters light up like this. He burst into the command center to find General Adams already there, staring at the main screen with her mouth slightly open. "Sir?" Walker asked, then followed her gaze. His coffee cup slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. On the main screen, a message played in perfect English, accompanied by visual data that defied everything he thought he knew about physics. The message was simple. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Galactic Council. We need your help." "Is this real?" Walker asked, his training kicking in as he moved to the nearest console to start running verification protocols. "Every space agency on Earth is receiving the same transmission," General Adams said. "Chinese, Russian, European. They're all confirming. This is real, Captain. We're about to have company." Within hours, the world's leaders had agreed to a first contact meeting. The chosen location was the EDF headquarters, largely because it was built to withstand anything from nuclear strikes to natural disasters. If these aliens turned out to be hostile, this was humanity's best defended location. The alien ship that appeared in orbit was nothing like the classic UFO designs humans had imagined. It looked more like a crystal snowflake made of light, delicate and beautiful. When it landed, the assembled human leaders watched in confusion as the ship deployed what looked like massive environmental shields. The alien that emerged made everyone understand why. The being called Orcs was barely 4 feet tall, with skin that looked like living silver and movements so delicate it seemed like Earth's gravity might snap it in half. It wore what appeared to be a powered exoskeleton just to walk in Earth's gravity. "Forgive our apparent weakness," Eric said through a translator device, its voice strained even through the protective suit. "We knew Earth was a challenging environment, but experiencing it firsthand is quite different from reading the data." Walker, standing guard near the world leaders, noticed how the alien flinched at every small sound. The wind, a distant helicopter, even people shifting in their chairs. He realized with a start that what humans considered a calm spring day must seem like a nightmare to these beings. "Your world," Eric's continued, "is what we classify as a death world. The gravity alone would kill most council species. The atmospheric pressure, the temperature variations, the background radiation. By our standards, this planet should be uninhabitable. And yet, you not only survive here, you thrive." The human leaders exchanged glances. President Chen of the United Earth Alliance leaned forward. "Are you saying we're the monsters in this scenario?" Eric's silver skin rippled in what might have been amusement. "From our perspective, yes. You are beings who evolved on a world that would crush most of our species. Your bones are like steel to us. Your muscles would be considered superhuman. You can survive radiation doses that would dissolve our forms. You can lose significant amounts of blood and continue fighting. You can break bones and still complete missions. You are, by our standards, practically indestructible." Walker felt a strange mix of pride and concern. Humanity had always imagined aliens would be more advanced, more capable. Instead, they were looking at beings who saw humans as something out of their horror stories. "We need your help," Eric said, its translator conveying desperate sincerity. "There is an enemy out there that thrives in conditions similar to your world. Our weapons are useless because we cannot fight in those environments. But you were born to face these conditions. Will humanity answer the call?" President Chen looked around at the other world leaders, then at the soldiers standing guard. Every human in the room stood a little straighter, a little prouder. They had just learned that what they considered normal was considered superhuman by galactic standards. "Tell us more about this enemy," Chen said, and Eric's silver skin rippled with what might have been relief. "And welcome to Earth. Would you like some coffee?" The alien's horrified reaction to the offer of hot, caffeine-laden liquid would become the first of many cultural misunderstandings between humans and their new galactic neighbors. Commander Lisa Stone stood in the rain, watching as alien observers huddled under their protective shields. The weather wasn't even bad by Earth standards. Just a normal spring shower in the training grounds of the Rocky Mountains. But to the aliens, the falling water seemed as dangerous as acid rain. "Should we stop the demonstration?" one of the alien observers asked through their translator. Their crystalline form vibrated with what Stone had learned to recognize as anxiety. "This is nothing," Stone replied, enjoying how the cool rain felt on her skin. "The candidates need to show they can perform in all conditions. This is actually perfect weather for the test." Below them, in the muddy training ground, 30 of Earth's finest soldiers were running the new qualification course. The aliens had tried to help design it, but their idea of impossible challenges had made Stone laugh. Now they watched in horror as humans tackled obstacles that would kill most galactic species. Subject Baker just broke his finger, one observer noted, their voice filled with alarm. "Surely we must stop him." Stone watched as Baker, a tough Marine from Texas, simply taped his broken finger to its neighbor and continued the course. "He's fine," she said. "Humans can keep going with much worse injuries. That's why you came to us, remember?" The selection process had been going on for 2 weeks. Earth's military forces had put forward their best candidates, and now they were being whittled down to form an elite unit. The aliens watched every test, their horror and amazement growing with each display of human capability. "Candidate Thomas is bleeding," another observer pointed out, their environmental suit whirring as they shifted nervously. "Just a scratch," Stone replied, watching as Thomas wiped the blood from a cut on her forehead and kept moving. "She's not even slowing down." The course itself would have been impossible for most galactic species. It started with a 5-mile run in full gear that weighed more than some alien species. Then came the climbing wall, 3 stories high with artificial rain and wind making the handhold slippery. After that, candidates had to crawl through mud under electrified wire, swim across a cold lake, and complete a shooting course where the targets fired back. "Your species considers this normal training?" The lead observer, a being named Trill, asked. Their gaseous form swirled with patterns that suggested both fear and fascination. Stone shrugged. "This is actually easier than some of our special forces qualification courses. We had to tone it down since you wanted more candidates to survive the testing." The word survive made all the aliens shift uncomfortably. In their cultures, any training that risked death was considered barbaric. They still couldn't understand how humans could push themselves to such extremes voluntarily. "Look there," Stone said, pointing to where a candidate named Miller had stopped to help Jones over a particularly challenging obstacle. "That's what you really need to see. Humans don't just endure. We help each other endure. We're stronger together." The aliens watched in silence as more examples of cooperation emerged. Candidates who were competing against each other still stopped to help when needed. They shared water, offered encouragement, and worked together on the harder obstacles. "Remarkable," Trill said. "They compete and cooperate simultaneously, and their bodies, the physical punishment they can absorb." Stone smiled as the first candidates began crossing the finish line. They were covered in mud, some bleeding, all exhausted, but grinning with accomplishment. You haven't seen anything yet. This was just the physical test. Wait until you see how we handle tactical challenges. The final scores were tallied as the rain continued to fall. Out of 30 candidates, 25 had completed the course, a number that made the aliens gasp in disbelief. They had expected maybe 2 or 3 to survive such extreme conditions. Commander Stone, Trill said, their translator struggling to convey their mix of emotions. We came to Earth expecting to find warriors capable of surviving harsh conditions. Instead, we found something much more valuable. Oh, Stone raised an eyebrow. What's that? We found beings who don't just survive harsh conditions. They thrive in them, who turn disadvantages into advantages, who compete fiercely but still help each other. Trill's gaseous form swirled with new patterns. We found hope. Stone watched as medics checked the candidates, treating broken fingers and cuts with casual efficiency. These men and women would form the core of humanity's first galactic defense force. And if the aliens were impressed by this, she couldn't wait to show them what humans could really do when the stakes were real. Let's go tell them they made it, she said, walking into the rain. Behind her, the aliens hurried to adjust their protective shields, still amazed that humans could walk so casually through what they considered dangerous precipitation. The Galactic Council's primary military facility orbited a gas giant in what humans would later nickname the Goldilocks system. To most species, the facility's artificial gravity and atmospheric settings were perfect. To the newly arrived humans, it felt like walking on the moon while breathing thin mountain air. Adjust gravity to Earth standard, Commander Stone ordered as her team stumbled around like drunk astronauts. The alien technicians looked at her in horror. But Commander, one of them protested, their crystalline form shimmering with concern. That would crush most of the equipment. And our people. Stone sighed. Then give us one section at Earth gravity. My people need to train at full capability. The aliens designated an entire wing of the station as the Heavy Zone, a name that made the humans chuckle. Within days, they had transformed it into something that looked more like a typical Earth military base, complete with training equipment they had brought from home. Captain Walker watched from an observation deck as Stone's team ran drills in the Heavy Zone. Even after 2 weeks in space, it was still strange to see aliens pressing their faces against the reinforced windows, watching humans exercise like they were viewing exotic animals at a zoo. They're doing it again, Miller said as she bench-pressed what felt like normal weights to her, but would have crushed most alien species, taking videos of us lifting things. Let them watch, Stone replied, spotting for Miller. They need to understand what we can do. The humans had quickly learned that what the Galactic Council considered advanced combat training was laughably basic by Earth standards. Their combat simulations assumed that any significant injury meant automatic withdrawal from battle. They had no concept of fighting through pain, of continuing a mission with broken bones, or while bleeding. Watch this, Jones said with a grin. He grabbed a training bar and did a set of pull-ups, something no other species in the facility could even attempt in Earth normal gravity. A group of gaseous aliens swirled in patterns of excitement, their translator devices chattering as they recorded the feat. But it wasn't all about showing off. The humans were learning too. They had to master alien technology, understand different species' capabilities, and learn to operate in environments that even they found challenging. Today's scenario, Stone announced to her team, is station defense under variable gravity conditions. She pulled up a holographic display that the aliens had taught them to use. The enemy can change gravity at will. We need to learn to fight in everything from 0G to double Earth standard. The team suited up in their modified combat gear. The aliens had tried to give them powered armor like other species used, but the humans found it too restricting. Instead, they worked with Earth engineers to create lightweight armor that enhanced their already impressive physical capabilities. Begin simulation, Stone commanded. The training room's gravity began shifting randomly. The humans stumbled at first, but they were quick learners. Within minutes, they were using the changing gravity to their advantage, pushing off walls in low G, using momentum in ways that made the alien observers dizzy just watching. Impossible, one of the alien instructors muttered as Jones used a gravity shift to launch himself across the room, firing training weapons with deadly accuracy even as he spun through the air. They're adapting to conditions that would incapacitate most species. Walker watched as his team mastered another impossible scenario. They had already broken every training record in the facility. The aliens had to create new testing parameters just for humans because the old ones didn't go high enough. You know what's funny? Walker said to Trill, who had become something of a liaison between humans and the council. This reminds me of the first time I went to the mountains for altitude training. Everything feels wrong at first, but your body adapts. Your species considers this normal. Trill's gaseous form swirled with what Walker had learned to recognize as disbelief. Adapting to conditions that would kill most life forms. That's what humans do, Walker replied, watching as his team completed the scenario with what would become their typical efficiency. We adapt. We overcome. We thrive in places where others just survive. The aliens were learning that their basic training was about to undergo a major overhaul. Humanity was rewriting the book on what was possible, and this was just the beginning. As Stone liked to say, they hadn't even started getting creative yet. Tomorrow, Stone announced to her team as they finished the day's training, we start learning to fight in extreme radiation zones. She smiled at the aliens' collective shudder. After all, that's where our enemy likes to hide, right? The humans grinned. The aliens trembled. And somewhere out in space, a silicon-based entity continued its advance, unaware that the galaxy's most dangerous species was preparing to hunt it down. The mining colony of Nexus 7 hung in space like a broken crystal, its outer sections already consumed by what humans had dubbed the Swarm. Through the reinforced viewport of the human assault ship, Thunderchild, Commander Stone watched the silvery mass crawl across the station's surface. Looks like a bunch of angry mercury, Miller said, checking her weapons for the third time. The team had modified their Earth weapons to work in space, another innovation that had shocked their alien allies. Remember, Stone addressed her team. This thing thinks like a computer. It expects logical responses. We're going to show it something new, human unpredictability. The aliens had insisted on sending one of their observers, a brave crystalline being named Spark, to document the first engagement. They needed to understand how humans fought. Now Spark floated in their environmental suit, recording everything with multiple sensors. Your plan, Spark said, their crystal form vibrating with nervous energy. It goes against all tactical logic. The simulations show a 98% failure rate. Good thing humans don't believe in those odds, Walker replied, grinning inside his helmet. Ready, Commander. Stone nodded. Launch the pods. Instead of docking normally, the humans had chosen to use modified drop pods, basically containers that would shoot them straight through the station's outer hull. The aliens had called it suicidal. The humans called it Tuesday. Impact in 5, the ship's AI announced. 4, 3, 2, 1. The pods slammed into the station like bullets. The Swarm, programmed to expect logical approaches through airlocks and docking ports, had left these sections relatively undefended. By the time it recognized the threat, 20 humans were already inside the station. Gravity's down, Jones reported, magnetic boots keeping him anchored, temperatures at -50 Celsius. Radiation levels would kill most species. Sounds like a party, Stone replied. Form up, weapons hot. Remember your training. The team moved through the station like they practiced hundreds of times. The Swarm, encountering human combat tactics for the first time, seemed almost confused. It tried to respond with mathematical precision to their movements, but humans didn't move with mathematical precision. It's adapting, Walker warned as silver tendrils began forming new patterns. Getting smarter. Then we get more creative, Stone ordered. Plan Crazy Ivan. Now, the humans split into teams of two. While the swarm predicted they would retreat from the increasing radiation and cold, they instead pushed deeper into the station. While it expected them to protect their flanks, they deliberately left openings to create traps. Impossible, Spark transmitted, their crystalline form flickering with excitement. They're using the hostile environment as a weapon. Stone's team had realized something during training. What the aliens considered lethal conditions were just really uncomfortable for humans. They could endure the cold, the radiation, the lack of gravity. It wasn't pleasant, but they could fight through it. Miller Jones set the charges. Stone ordered, "Walker, with me. We're going to give this thing something new to calculate." They had discovered that the swarm worked like a computer virus, spreading through systems in logical patterns. But humans had centuries of experience fighting computer viruses, and they knew that sometimes the best defense was controlled chaos. "Charges set," Miller reported, ready to overload the station's power grid. The swarm, detecting the explosives, began moving to disarm them. It was logical, protect the infrastructure it was trying to consume. But it didn't understand that humans would sacrifice the very ground they stood on to win. "All teams, magnetic locks on," Stone commanded. 3, 2, 1. Light it up. The charges detonated, not to destroy the swarm directly, but to create a massive power surge through the station's systems. The surge traveled through the conductive silver mass of the swarm, disrupting its patterns. At the same time, the humans used the explosive decompression to propel themselves through the station, firing modified weapons that spread compounds designed to disrupt the swarm's molecular bonds. By all known tactical doctrine, this shouldn't work, Spark transmitted, watching as the humans turned chaos into victory. "Known tactical doctrine never met humans before," Stone replied, watching the swarm retreat from the station, its perfect silver surface now pitted and scarred. When they returned to the Thunderchild, the team was battered, cold, and slightly radioactive, but victorious. They had lost no one, though everyone had injuries that made Spark sensors go wild with alarm. "First round goes to the Deathworlders," Walker said, helping Miller patch a nasty cut on her arm. Stone looked at the station, now partially cleared of the swarm's influence. "We've shown it something new," she said, "but it learns fast. Next time will be harder." "Good," her team replied in unison, and Spark recorded the strange expression humans called a smile appearing on their faces. The swarm had just learned that not everything in the galaxy followed logical patterns, and the humans were just getting started. 3 months into the campaign against the swarm, the human forces had earned a reputation that made even their alien allies nervous. After each battle, the medical bay would fill with humans sporting injuries that should have been fatal, laughing and joking as doctors patched them up. "Your left arm has a fracture in 3 places," an alien medic told Jones, their tentacles waving in distress. "And you kept fighting for 2 hours after it happened." "Had to get the job done," Jones replied with a shrug that made the medic's color change in horror. "Besides, I still had one good arm." Commander Stone stood in the Thunderchild's command center, studying the latest battle reports. The swarm was learning, adapting to human tactics. Each victory came at a higher price. But something else was happening too. The humans were getting better, faster, more innovative. "Commander," Walker burst into the room, his face serious. "Emergency transmission from the Council. The swarm has found Luminara." The room fell silent. Luminara was the Galactic Council's crown jewel, a planet of crystalline beings who were the galaxy's greatest scientists. If the swarm took their knowledge. "How long?" Stone asked, already moving toward the armory. 6 hours until the swarm reaches the outer defense grid. The Council's evacuating the planet, but Walker hesitated. "Their ships are too slow. Millions will die." Stone activated the ship's comm system. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." The Thunderchild's engines roared to life as the human team prepared for what the aliens were calling a suicide mission. The ship itself was a testament to human adaptation, modified with Earth technology that made it faster and tougher than any Council vessel. The swarm has never attacked a target this large, Miller said during the mission briefing. It's put everything it has into this assault. 3 million separate entry points detected so far. Stone looked at her team. They were bruised, bandaged, and tired from their last battle just 2 days ago. But their eyes were sharp, focused. Anyone want to sit this one out? The response was immediate and unanimous. We've trained for worse conditions on Earth. This phrase had become their battle cry, a reminder that humans were built for exactly these kinds of impossible situations. The aliens had learned to both fear and respect those words. The Thunderchill dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Luminara system. The view made even the hardened human soldiers pause. The swarm had evolved, forming massive structures that looked like silver thunderclouds in space. That's new, Walker said, checking his modified weapon. The humans had learned to disrupt the swarm's molecular structure, but never had they seen it on this scale. New just means we get to be creative, Stone replied. She opened a channel to the Luminaran Defense Force. This is Commander Stone. We're here to buy you time to evacuate. What's the situation? The response came in desperate bursts of data. The swarm had adapted to every defense the Luminarans had created. It was consuming their orbital stations one by one, using their own technology against them. Right then, Stone said, her voice carrying the calm that came with absolute focus. Plan Thunder Run. The human team moved to their positions. The aliens had said this plan was impossible, flying straight into the heart of the swarm's formation, disrupting its control structure, and somehow surviving the massive radiation and gravitational forces it was generating. Impossible is just another word for humans haven't tried it yet, Miller said, quoting what had become another of their favorite sayings. The Thunderchild accelerated, its modified engines pushing it to speeds that made the alien engineers scream mornings. The swarm, despite all its learning, still expected logical approaches. It didn't expect a ship to deliberately fly into what was essentially a radioactive storm in space. Impact in 10 seconds, the ship's AI announced. 9. 8. Stone looked at her team, each member checking their gear one last time. They had modified their suits to handle conditions that the aliens considered unsurvivable. They had trained in radiation levels that would kill most species. They had prepared for exactly this kind of mission. Remember, Stone said as the ship plunged into the silver storm, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every species that can't fight in these conditions. We're fighting for the galaxy. The battle that followed would become legend in the Council archives. The day humans proved that impossible was just a matter of perspective. The final battle for the galaxy began not with a grand speech or a formal declaration, but with Captain Walker looking at a sensor reading and saying, "Well, that's not good." The swarm had revealed its true form, a massive computational structure hidden in the corona of a dying star. The radiation levels there were so intense that even human sensors could barely function. The gravitational forces would crush most ships instantly. Of course it would hide there. Commander Stone said, studying the readings. It's the perfect defense. No species could possibly survive an attack in those conditions. No species except humans, Miller added, already checking her gear. The entire team knew what was coming. After 6 months of battles, they had pushed the swarm back to its source. Now they had to finish the job. The Galactic Council had begged them not to attempt an attack. The conditions around the star were beyond their definition of survivable. Even with their modified ships and advanced gear, the humans would be pushing the very limits of what their biology could handle. Let me be clear, Stone addressed her team in the Thunderchild's briefing room. This mission is technically impossible. The radiation will fry our sensors. The gravity will try to tear us apart. The heat would vaporize any normal ship. The Council says we have a 0% chance of survival. She paused, looking at each member of her team. They were all veterans now, carrying scars from battles that had rewritten the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. "So," she continued with a grin, "just another Tuesday for us Deathworlders." Right. The plan was insane by any logical standard. The humans had modified their ship with technology that made the alien engineers question their sanity. They had turned the very conditions that made the star lethal into weapons they could use. "The swarm thinks like a computer," Walker explained during the final briefing. "It chose this location because the math says nothing can survive here. But humans don't rely on math alone. We adapt. We overcome. We do the impossible because we don't believe in impossible." The Thunderchill dove into the star's corona like a bullet into fire. The ship's hull creaked under forces that should have crushed it instantly. Warning systems screamed about radiation levels that were off the charts. "Hull temperature critical," the AI announced. "Radiation shields at maximum. Structural integrity failing." "Just like summer in Death Valley," Jones joked, even as his console sparked from the intense radiation. The team had trained for these conditions, pushing themselves beyond what even they thought possible. The swarm, detecting their approach, launched its final defense. Silver tentacles of computronium, each capable of tearing a normal ship apart, reached for them through the stellar fire. "Evasive maneuvers," Stone ordered. "Miller Jones, prepare the package." The package was another example of human insanity. A device that would turn the star's own radiation into a weapon against the swarm's computational structure. The aliens had said it was theoretically possible but practically suicidal to deliver. 20 seconds to optimal position, Walker announced as the ship corkscrewed through space that was more fire than vacuum. 15. 10. The swarm's defenses intensified. A tendril of silver liquid sliced through the ship's outer hull. Emergency force fields snapped into place as warning sirens added to the chaos. 5 seconds, Walker continued, his voice steady despite the blood trickling from his nose, a sign of the intense gravity they were fighting. 4. 3. "Remember Earth," Stone said as Miller and Jones moved to launch the package. "Remember why we're here. We're not just Earth's soldiers anymore. We're the galaxy's last hope." "Package away," Miller reported. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star itself seemed to pulse. The device worked exactly as designed, turning the star's radiation into a weapon that disrupted the swarm's molecular bonds. The massive computational structure began to break apart, its perfect silver surface turning dull and lifeless. "Get us out of here," Stone ordered as the star began to react to the swarm's destruction. The Thunderchild, despite its damaged hull and failing systems, responded to human determination one last time. They emerged from the corona like a phoenix from the flames, their ship more wrecked than vessel, their bodies pushed beyond what even humans should survive. But they had done it. The swarm was destroyed. When they limped back to Council space, they found the galaxy had changed. The impossible victory had rewritten everyone's understanding of what was possible. Humans weren't just classified as Deathworlders anymore. They were honored as the species that had saved the galaxy by doing what no one else could even attempt. "So what's next?" Walker asked Stone as they watched aliens swarm over their damaged ship, studying how humans had modified it to survive the unsurvivable. Stone smiled, looking at the stars. "The galaxy's a big place, Captain. And I hear there are a lot of impossible things out there just waiting for humans to prove them possible." The legacy of Earth's Deathworlders would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. They had answered the call when needed, and in doing so, had changed the universe's understanding of what was truly impossible.